everyone that has half a brain can be rich.
Do you remember the movie Ratatouille?
Yeah.
You remember how all the critics get pissed because Chef Gusteau says his new book is anyone can cook.
Yes, anyone can cook. And they're like, garbage.
They're like, no, not anybody can cook. So I bring you a similar question, Kris. Can anyone be successful?
No.
Okay. Well, all my list of questions went out the window because I didn't expect you to say no. I expected you to say yes.
No. Okay, so I'm going to reveal that I am locked in a debate. And sometimes I feel left and sometimes I feel right. I have a son who is, he used to be profoundly autistic. We were able to get some amazing medical treatment on the East Coast. And now my son is high functioning with his autism, and he definitely has limits and he's got gaps. When it comes to like spatial awareness and like engineering mindset things, he's off the charts genius. Like his last assessment, the guy said, in 5,000 kids, I've never seen this.
Really?
But then when it comes to like language reading comprehension, he's at like 1%, right? So I look at him and I'm like, okay, he's on the spectrum. And sometimes I question whether all people are on the spectrum. And because he's on the spectrum, that means that there are certain things he cannot do. It's not that he doesn't have the will. He may never develop the ability to learn some of these gaps, some of these things. And so the question, I know that's not where you were headed for today.
No, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
But like people fall into one of these two camps. And sometimes I'm of the camp where I'm like, God, I want to believe in this person so bad, but maybe they're doing the best they know how. And even though I'm disappointed at this outcome, maybe that's what their best looks like. And now I'm just leaving them feeling discouraged because after all that they could do, that was their outcome. So there's a part of me that just says all people are fixed. You're fixed. You're almost fated by what you can or can't do based on the brain that God gave you or the body that God gave you. It's not like a man born without arms is going to become a world-class swimmer and win the Olympics. He can't. That's not what his body, and yet when you take a look at Phelps, that guy's hands, like mine, my arms are 2 inches longer on each side than I am tall.
Which is abnormal because most people it's the same.
Yeah, and they have long torsos. Phelps has an abnormally long torso, small legs, and he has fins. His arms are, he was built to get all those gold medals biologically. You can't control.
Now that's not to...
You can't control biology. You're given what you're given and you got to work with what you got. But then you have this other paradigm. And the other paradigm says, yeah, but if you put your mind to it, what can you achieve? And I keep coming back into this camp because I look at where I come from and I look at where I'm at today and I'm like, man, I developed these skills. I had a mind that could learn things. I challenged myself. I feel like I started in my early 20s with nothing except for my inability to give up. And I didn't look at things as failure. I looked at that as learning. And I would learn until I could make money, and which is a nicer way of saying I've failed a lot.
Yeah.
And so I am an advocate for the underdog. And as long as you have a brain and a body that can learn, I'm going to lean over here and say, I believe that you can figure this out unless you have some biological condition that means that you can't. I'm lost between those two worlds, man.
Yeah, it's a complicated
because I have to ask myself, do I believe in people?
Yeah.
And the answer is, of course, but I have to believe in them in as much as they have potential. So my son does not have the potential to become a world-class reader. I don't know if my son will actually ever even be able to drive a car. We'll find out in a couple of years. He's turning 14 next month. And I'm curious. I don't know.
Well, and I've got another question to follow that up with is, does your son want to be an excellent reader?
No. And because I pulled him out of our normal education model, we're not pursuing that. We're pursuing his strengths. And I'm doing this, by the way, with all of my children. I think that the schooling that I went to 20 years ago was all about memorization, learning stuff, and comparing you to other kids. We all have to learn geometry. We all have to get exposed to trig. We all need to learn physics and what is work. You all have to learn this, chemistry and this science, and we're all going to judge this ability. And then when I took, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I don't care. When I took my SAT, go to college, my first SAT score was under 1,000. And that's because I learned that I wasn't good at like taking tests. but I signed up for a course in how to take the SAT. And then I got a near perfect score because I learned for me that the SAT wasn't a measure of intelligence.
It's a game.
It was a measure of my ability to learn how to take a test well.
Yeah.
So I've always had to make up for an effort what I've lacked in natural ability. Now I've put in my 10,000 Malcolm Gladwell hours on 18 different things that I've become an expert in. So people look at me today and they're like, oh my gosh, Kris, you're gifted. God spent extra time on you. Look how special you are. And look at your X factor. I'm like, everything that you see about me that you like was beasted. Everything that you're witnessing here was not what I had 20 years ago. This is manufactured. So I guess what I'm grateful for is that I have a brain and a desire to learn, and that I can.
So, two things that I want to ask you about or bring up on this topic that I think are really interesting. The first is talent versus drive.
I'll take drive any day of the week.
Really?
Screw talent. Talent often, not always, talent usually is wasted. My experience is that people will use it as an opportunity to be lazier, to do less, and you see it everywhere. Drive, on the other hand, give me a person that's hungry, give me a person motivated, and I can go anywhere with that person. As long as they have the ability to learn, I can teach that person charisma, I can teach that person how to break through their limiting beliefs, I can teach that person financial skills and abilities, I can teach that person how to run companies. That's a function of drive, not raw talent. Sometimes talent gets in the way. It's not bad, it's good, but sometimes it gets in the way.
So drive. So would you, if I amended my statement and said anyone with drive can be successful, would you agree?
To some extent.
Yeah?
Yeah, to some extent. I think that the average person with drive, yes, they can go all the way and in this world anywhere that they want to go. I also just want to acknowledge that we have strengths and weaknesses. And when you have a weakness, you should ask yourself, can I turn the weakness into a strength? But then you should ask, should I? I have 4 children. Should I cater their education to overcoming what they're not good at or to cause them to excel in what they're naturally good at? Where do you put focus and energy? The reason why I have a financial genius mastermind, and I'm so excited about it, is because I expose my students to 25 different ways of making money, 25 different what I call financial verticals. So you see someone will follow me on social media and say, oh my gosh, Kris, I'm attracted to you because I want to be financially free. And the way you did it tactically, strategically was through real estate. So real estate must be my path. And I'm like, brother, you are not built with the mind of real estate, but you could be perfect for business or franchise or capital raising or crypto or non-correlating diversified asset structures. Like the skies. And so in other words, I want to put someone in the place where they are going to excel the most. For example, you know what makes a real estate investor really bad? Their results really poor?
Emotions?
No. Beyond emotions, the question is, are they a numbers person?
Yeah.
See, I did have raw talent for statistics and percentages. And when I took a stats class, I thought I was I thought it was another weeder class, just like I got weeded out of pre-med. And when I took this class, professor gets up in front of 200 people and same story. Well, you need this to get an MBA or pursue some higher education. So my job is to fail you and grade you on a curve. And I was like, oh, I'm screwed. Because of my natural raw talent with stats, I never did my homework. I never turned an assignment because everything was 100% weighted on a final test. On the final test out of 200 kids in the room, I was the number 1 grade. The curve was based on me. I got like 113% or something. And the majority of the class, 90% of them got an F. I like numbers. And that's one of the reasons why I actually do really well in real estate. So I feel lucky. Yeah. I feel lucky that I found a financial niche that really caters to the fact that I can do very simple addition. 5th grade math, by the way. When I say good with numbers, I mean addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and then just understanding percentages. I can give things sniff checks and rapidly find out whether something is exciting or horrible. And I've noticed that people that don't have that ability sometimes make grave business errors.
I'll never forget that moment, Kris, when you sat down with Richard. He had a P&L of a company he was looking at buying. He didn't tell you the name of the company. You looked at the financials for literally 60 seconds and said to him, "This is a laundromat, isn't it?" And he was like, How the crap did you know? This was a
And it was
laundromat.
obvious because I can take numbers and turn them into words.
Right.
But that's a skill that I had to learn. I didn't understand accounting, which is, by the way, if you don't know, accounting is the language of business.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, so let me amend this statement from Ratatouille because at the end of the film, they say it a little different, and I think it works a little better than Gusteau's Anyone Can Cook. He says, not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere. Would you agree with that statement?
I would, because I believe that we are all brilliant. We're all genius in some vertical. My parents raised 9 kids, me being number 4, with this expectation that my father, German immigrant, had no father, super strict upbringing. And he had very high standards when it came to education because he believed, since he was a blue collar, even though business owner, because he had a roofing company and a remodeling company and he was in construction, the people that he hired were often those that didn't go past high school. They didn't go to college. And my dad made this assumption that if you go to college, you'll receive the best opportunities in life. So for us, it was 4.0 or bust. Well, I had an older brother that could get a 4.0 in his sleep because he was academically inclined. For me, unless I put in a lot of effort, I wasn't going to get a 4.0. I think I graduated like a 3.8 or something. Like it was high, but it was because it was an expression of effort. I have a sister, on the other hand, who had a very low GPA. And my father's standards were very disheartening for her because her mind just couldn't do things like math. To this day, she still thinks that a baker's dozen is 10, right? However, if you sit her down at the piano and say, create something, right before you, she will play a melody, a tune with all of her fingers that she's never played before. And you'll shed a tear because you see its creation happening spontaneous in the moment. You can't teach that.
Yeah.
She has this raw ability. It's beautiful. And then she has honed it and she's cultivated it. I believe we all have that. I don't think it's easy for us to see because we take for granted what comes natural to us. But everyone is gifted in some way. Even my son is gifted in a way. And so I think it's important for us to actually explore where we are gifted and to figure out what we can do with that by doing the things that come natural to us and figure out what to cultivate. Make sure we never take those things for granted because we usually do.
So I believe there are a lot of people listening to this, Kris, that are interested in being financially successful, of course, but then successful in other areas of their life. And there's probably many out there that are feeling like, they want to achieve that success.
Yeah.
What's your final words to them
I
on
would
how to
say,
be successful?
First of all, everyone that has half a brain can be rich, multi-millionaires. I think that most people treat money the way business owners treat accounting. It's unattractive. It doesn't look fun. I'm going to put it off. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to have someone else do it. But you'll never become a successful business owner until you can read a P&L. If you can't read a financial statement, then you're never going to understand a core aspect of business. So I found that is true for me in franchise, real estate, stocks, owning multiple companies, consult for equities. I make money in and my goal is to make money in every single vertical. I have companies that are, straight out of Silicon Valley, tech-based. I've got, trucking companies, shipping companies. I've got companies that do things internationally, overseas. My wife and I are in the process of buying a mine right now. Like, I'm in so many places, and I can do that because I've allowed myself to learn enough about the game of finance and money. Do I believe that everyone should become an expert of how to be their healthiest self with their body? Yes. Do I believe that everyone should get an education in pursuing world-class relationships, in how to advocate for the needs of those that you love? Yes. Do I believe that everyone should discover God within and above and strive to have and develop that spiritual nature of life? 100%. And do I believe that everyone should master the game of money? I do. If you don't master those things, I think that you're going to feel incomplete as a human. So never allow your career to get in the way of the education that matters most. Because what does it avail a person to make all the money in the world and have the relationship end in a disastrous divorce? What's the purpose of having the most loving, tender relationship on the planet, but then dying of a heart attack at 48, 200 pounds overweight? They're all connected. Wealth is your health and your finances and your relationships. So you need to strive for success in certain areas. Money is one of those. It shouldn't be ignored, and those that do will pay a price, a very heavy price. Just like if you ignore your health or your relationships. Those are things that you can't ignore. And we should all seek to be our most successful. I don't care if you do have half a brain. You should seek to be your most successful in your health and in your relationships and in your finances.